Hello and welcome to Clamp, the Creating, Living, and Making podcast. I'm your host, Grant Alexander, and joining me this week is the wonderful Adam Mackey.
G'day, mates.
And the other person on the podcast is Morley Kurt.
Yo, yo.
How's everyone doing this week, Adam? What's been in your clamps this week?
Ooh, I have been building a deck, which is almost finished. I talked about it last week. I built like the big part of the deck, and then we have like a step down so I decided to skin the big one first and then add the step down on after, because I wanted to skin the end of the big one, and then that would determine the height of the step down, if that makes sense. Which actually ended up being more of a problem than I anticipated, because it made me not be able to access the framing for the big deck to bolt the small deck to the big deck.
It's like you didn't think the order of operations through on that one, eh?
Definitely didn't think that one through. But I ended up getting it to work, and I just got to skin the little one with decking on top, and that was done finally.
Yay.
Yeah, and then yesterday I got half my CNC. I'm annoyed because it comes in two big packages. They were both shipped at the same time. They have the same tracking number, but only one of the boxes was delivered, because when they pick up the order, they then made it tracking number 01 and tracking number 02. And tracking number 02 is a big pallet, and tracking number 01 is just like an 8 kilogram box. So they delivered the 01, and now the 02 hasn't even, has got no tracking history at all other than it was picked up. Whereas the 01 has like 10 different changes that it's had. So
that's frustrating.
Yeah, it's not meant to come for like another week. But at least I got all the bits and I got the X-axis part. So now I'm just waiting for the actual unit. So I don't know. I'm pretty happy that I'm getting it. Yeah. And now I've got to build another bench for it to go on, because the one I have isn't sturdy enough. So I'm going to be making a video on that. Making a
torsion box?
Torsion box, that's it. Yeah. Torsion box, but I want to wait till the CNC gets here, because I'm going to have a pull-out drawer on half of it, and I want to cut out in the bottom of the drawer to hold like the bits and calipers and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah.
Adam, by the way, I listened to your episode of Because We Make, and it was really good. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. I enjoyed it too. It's weird being on the other side.
Yeah, it was. I thought you did a better job on that podcast than you do on our podcast.
Yeah.
It's less pressure.
I'll give credit where credit's due. Vincent is very good at keeping the conversation going and knowing when to move forward onto the next question, and really good at making it flow. So I was actually really anxious going into it, because all I was thinking was like, I hate talking about myself, and like they're going to ask me questions and I'm going to like stumble on my answers. But I think it went really well. I enjoyed it. Just felt like we were having a conversation.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this week I have been very busy trying to get my trailer to 90% done. #callback. And it's done. I'm going camping tomorrow, so wherever it is, that's where it's going to be. But I did stuff like I installed the backsplash today, because it finally came in, because I ordered it, and then they send me a question to confirm whether or not I actually wanted the thing I ordered, which frustrated me so much because it went into my junk mail folder. And then I was like, why wouldn't you just send me the thing I asked for? Anyways, frustrated. But yeah, doing the finishing touches. I got the brackets for the awning welded up today. I really wanted to grind them down and make them look super nice. But I did not have time to grind the welds nice. So I filed them a little bit and then put them on. And it's 90% there.
Yeah. It's on the roof. No one will see it.
Yeah, that's exactly what Abby said. Anyways, the new awning bag. Did I talk about last week I did the awning bag?
No, I think you did that after we recorded.
I have been stupidly busy then. I built, for my very first sewing project ever in my life, using a sewing machine because I've sewn by hand. I did a 9-foot long awning bag, which, if people who don't know, like a bag awning or an awning bag, it actually stays on the trailer in a bag, a waterproof bag, and then you unzip the thing and roll it out, and then you have an awning. So it's attached to your trailer. A lot of other awnings either are like the roll-up type that don't have a bag, or and they attach to the side of the trailer as well as the top. And the other thing is like ones that you put in as you get there. They're kind of like tarp based. Anyways, it was a lot of work. One of the funny things, I had to control the sewing machine. It's foot pedal controlled, but because the thing was so long and I needed 9 feet of in feed and 9 feet of out feed, I had to do it on my living room floor. And I had to like sit. Do you know that like monkey that like has cymbals on its feet?
Yeah.
Like plays the cymbals with its feet. That's how I was controlling the foot pedal to keep the machine going.
I think you're too conditioned by woodworking. You know, fabric bends, right? You don't actually need 9 feet of in feed and out feed.
No, so when I did the zippers, I didn't need it. Fabric bends. The awning doesn't bend. So the awning is like this like umbrella material. Like think of an umbrella material, but even thicker. Right? It's like Sunbrella is the one who makes the material. Right. And you roll it up into the bag. So I either had to have 10 feet or 8 feet like wide so that it's not rolled up and then it would bend. But once you like roll it up and bend, you can't bend it.
Right.
So you needed that. Yeah. When I did the zippers, it was like magic. It was wonderful. I put it underneath the table, zip, zip, zip. The zippers look great. I refused to do close-up pictures of everything after I had to do the awning. So I had to sit on the floor with the in-feed and out-feed and like do it like a monkey playing cymbals on his feet to get the machine to keep going because foot pedal controlled. And then the machine was not sufficient enough to like actually work, that I had to, there's a flywheel on the side and I had to keep hitting the flywheel. So I'm guiding the thing that's 9 feet long with one hand while controlling a foot pedal for speed and hitting the flywheel constantly to keep it going. And if you stop hitting the flywheel, it jams up.
Oh, wow. So you need like a big, like canvas thick, sturdy sewing machine.
Right. You would do industrial sewing machine, but I'm a DIY guy, so I don't have that.
Yeah.
Don't you have leatherworking tools?
Yeah, but I didn't want to do
a long time.
Do the whole thing by hand.
We recently picked up 8 Singer sewing machines at camp because an instructor planned like a body pillow project for this session. And the Steam Project has been looking to invest in sewing machines for a while to like expand the type of crafts we can do. So it's super exciting. They're all ready to be unboxed, but it's going to be super cool to see like 10 kids all using sewing machines side by side.
Totally. So
the sound in that room is going to be insane.
Be very satisfying.
No, because they'll all be out of sync. I just want to say that, like, completely unrelated to your actual build, you call me upside down. Since when are the symbols on the feet of the monkey?
So this is why there are times where the monkey plays the cymbals with his hands. What I'm saying is a monkey could play the cymbals with his feet. Okay. But humans can't.
Right.
But yes, I agree. The monkey has got the cymbals on his hands. Anyways, it's like he's playing with it. That's how I wanted to. Anyways, it was just a picture I was painting in people's heads because it's an audio medium. Thanks for ruining that picture in everyone's head. Anyways, I got it done. The zippers are straight as an arrow. The other ones are straight as, I don't know. I want to make a joke about something that's not straight, but I can't think of anything. So don't do that if I were you. Don't, they're horrible. It's like as straight as a river, which everyone knows is not very straight. Nice save. Yeah. I also, for everyone who has remembered all the rants I've made about my YouTube recommendation problem and how YouTube has forgotten me, I figured out what happened. So there's a way you can sign up for things that give Google junk data. So instead of giving, like, just not sharing your data with Google, instead it gives Google junk data. So it just randomizes data and gives it to them. And when you do that, Google doesn't know what you like and doesn't know what language you speak anymore or anything like that because it's got a bunch of junk data. So then it feeds you recommendations based off that junk data, which now makes sense why I was getting such really, really random, didn't make any sense at all with anything I watch, YouTube recommendations. So I turned that off.
You messaged us telling us about this, and I think like at the same time you were ranting in the Discord about you get these terrible YouTube recommendations and you don't know why. And I'm just thinking like, Grant's just trying to squeeze one more complaint out of this, even though now he knows the reason.
Well, I think you might have been reading a past message. But,
I'm pretty sure they were within like 2 minutes of one another.
Right. And I think that's when I figured it out.
Okay.
Because I went and looked for it. I went and looked for an answer because I was like, this is ridiculous. Like the amount of different languages I'm being offered is just ridiculous. Like it's like I'll get Russian and like Chinese and then like just everything. All these languages, I can't even read them, right? The titles are all in random like alphabets that I don't understand. I don't even know where they're from. And they're just so random. And I was just like, what is happening? Anyways. Yeah, it's because I was trying to be private without using a VPN. I just wanted to feed Google a bunch of junk data so that they didn't have my information. They'd stop offering me stuff that I talked about offhandedly in my kitchen as ads.
Right.
Anyways, I did want to get one more complaint, and that was it. I'm still complaining about it now because it's still affecting me. But as soon as I switched that off, my recommendations got 10 times better. Nice.
Well, I'm very glad you figured that out. This week, yes. I didn't have YouTube problems, which was pretty nice. Although I did get a lot of woodworking done. I was working a lot this weekend on the fountain that I mentioned last week. And as happens in a lot of projects that have like a 70% conception in my head, as I started working on it, the plan started to shift a little bit. So I got like the basic frame done, the part that I knew like this is 100% how it's going to be. And then the actual kind of like part where the water is running down, I wasn't really happy with my original design. So I kind of kept working on other parts that I could, sealed parts with epoxy, and went on a walk and eventually kind of got this idea of using. So I ended up buying a 3/4 inch Baltic birch plywood. The original plan was to make everything out of 1/2 inch Baltic birch, but that was out of stock at the lumberyard. So unfortunately, I have to do it with the nicer plywood. Woe is me. And so you get a lot more layers. And I was thinking like, I kind of want to like take advantage of this a little bit and add some more texture, because that was one of the reasons I didn't love my original design, was that it didn't have a lot of texture to it. So I eventually settled on doing this sort of like, I would call it like plywood brick or plywood tile design, where it's different widths of strips of plywood that are glued in like a brick pattern onto this backing piece. And it looks super cool. It was also incredibly satisfying work to do, just like gluing these pieces on one on top of the other, and figuring out what would look cool. So I'm super happy with how that's coming. It's definitely a longer project. I'm not really sure when the video is going to come out because there's a lot of parts to it. There's still a few things to figure out. In the process of figuring it out, I'm also still in the process of figuring out where I'm going to put it. It's a lot heavier than my original design. And so my original plan was to put it in my bathroom. There's this like spot where it would be absolutely perfect on the wall. So I went up and stood on my toilet to see like where I could hang it. And I got down from the toilet and realized that I had snapped the brackets that hold the toilet seat onto the toilet, which isn't great. unless you want to just take it off and live your life without a toilet seat. So Eden asked me if I could fix it. My original plan was just to epoxy them back together. And she proposed the idea of just making 3D printed connectors. And I was like, oh, that'd be a fun little project. So I ended up doing that like at the end of last week, made a little Instagram video for it. Of course, it turned out to be one of my like most popular videos I've ever posted to Instagram. It got something like 18,000 impressions, which I'm pretty sure is up at the top for that. It was like 10,000 views or something like that.
Wow.
And I got a lot of comments on Reddit as well, where people were asking about like the modeling process in Fusion of using canvases. So that's basically like when you insert a reference photo, you scale it and you trace it, which is something I use a lot in Fusion, but I didn't realize that like a lot of people don't really know how to do this. And I think I mentioned it before, like I've been considering making some Fusion tutorials for a while. Like I have experience teaching 3D modeling software. I enjoy doing it. I was like, oh, this sounds like it would be a good first one to do. So in between some woodworking this weekend, I quickly busted out a little Fusion tutorial on using reference photos. And it was cool. It was a fun video. People are really liking it. It's doing pretty well. So I think I'm going to do more of those because there's definitely a demand for them. And I feel like I'm not terrible at it.
I think you definitely should.
Well, I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. Sorry. But I did obviously see your toilet. Like I watched your little video on Instagram, and I think I commented something like, it's funny because I would have made it out of wood.
Yeah.
And so I was making these brackets for the awning, and I was like, the first thing I was going to do is just make them out of aluminum. And then instead, I decided, hey, it made me think about the comment, and I first made a copy out of wood so that I could see what they would look like and prototype them up. And I went, I know if Morley was here, I'd have 3D printed brackets. But instead, I've got like this, weirdly bent aluminum.
It's all about tool access, right? So like if I had a spindle sander, a belt sander, and a drill press, and maybe a bandsaw, I would 100% prototype it or just make it out of wood. But because the 3D printer, I have the 3D printer and I have the 3D modeling skills. It's just, that's kind of the way that's easier for me. Like a wood one would definitely be stronger. It would look nicer. But yeah,
I like the 3D printed one because it feels more like you're replacing a part that you could buy, if that makes sense. Like it was plastic originally, right? So I feel like wood would not be a good option, especially if you get wet and if you like to drink a lot and miss the toilet a lot. I'm curious to know, what is the thought process when you start filming your toilet? Like, how many times did you clean the thing? And
I definitely cleaned it for sure. And it's as a commenter on Reddit pointed out, incorrectly, I will add. So it's an old toilet. Like this is an old rented apartment, and the toilet seat's a little worn. And someone on Reddit was like, they were making some comment about how like it's super gross and like you can see shit on the toilet seat. Oh, sorry, I swear. You can see poop on the toilet seat right there. And it's actually just a wear mark.
It was clearly just a wear mark, yeah.
Yeah, where the paint wore through. So yeah, it's like those times when I've filmed my waist/crotch area for a belt, final shot in a video. You're very conscious of the angles, and I'm thinking about like, I wonder how uncomfortable people are going to be like looking at a toilet. So
I was uncomfortable.
It's always funny when you do something kind of off the cuff and it ends up just being a bigger deal and more work than you anticipated. Like this was just like going to be a little project. And I was like, oh, maybe I'll film it because these little, like every time I post a little 3D printed fix video, they do really well. Like every single one that I've done is done incredibly well because people love that stuff. So
every time you post one, it's exactly when I go, I think I need a 3D printer for those things, right? Like,
yeah. I definitely want to get a resin printer now. I think that if I ever get a 3D printer, which I probably will eventually, it'll definitely be resin. But I think you should definitely keep up with the Fusion tutorials because you can never have enough of them. Everyone has a different way of doing things, and like I haven't seen anyone do like the reference images. I mean, I'm sure there's videos out there if I looked for it, but I don't know. Like, if I was going to replicate a part, I wouldn't even think about taking pictures of it and how to do that.
Yeah, for sure. I'll definitely dive deeper down that rabbit hole. The other thing that happened this week, which was kind of neat, was I was featured in Hackspace magazine, which I hadn't heard of until the guy reached out to me a few months ago. He saw my cardboard chair video, so he just asked if he could feature me. I kind of forgot about it because it was a long time ago at this point. And then Andy Pugh, shout out to the man, messaged me saying like, "Oh, I saw you were featured in Hackspace." So that was pretty neat. Apparently, it's a relatively popular maker magazine that is put out by the Raspberry Pi Foundation. So that was kind of a cool little thing that happened.
They still make magazines?
Yeah, okay. They're not even just in airports either.
Like, are you trying to steal my segue?
Yes. I'm going to get in before Grant.
Why do I even keep coming here? Like, why? So
really, for 1 week.
I was here last week.
I know.
Yeah,
but you opened the door.
Clampmendations. Yeah. I did steal the transition to Clampmendations last week. So
no, he tried to still host last week.
Yeah.
I came up with the topic last week, so I thought I was hosting. So this week I wanted to, because of Morley's being featured in that magazine, and obviously, things like magazines, I wanted to talk about, is print media dead? And I wanted to talk because obviously Morley grew up in an age where, magazines all were available online in one way or another. Almost everything. There was an online component to just about every magazine. I grew up before the internet existed, basically, and when they tried to transition. So wanted to talk a little bit about that and what you guys' thoughts were.
I'm going to tell you something unbelievable. You ready for this? I have never read the online version of a magazine, ever. I've read single articles.
Yeah.
But I've never subscribed to a magazine and read through it the same way that I have a print magazine.
Yeah, never.
And this is one of the things that I think is interesting about why print media may not be dead.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's something about, I will read an article in a print magazine that I wouldn't read if it was online. Right?
Yeah.
But I won't
It has Morley was going to say he's never read a newspaper.
I'm illiterate. No, there's something. It has a much lower barrier to. It has a much lower apparent barrier to entry if you don't have to open a new tab or click a link, and you can just flip through and go through stuff.
Right. So I know. So a colleague of mine worked in the very beginnings of the print media to online, and he worked in a business that their thing was taking newspapers and making them available online in a readable fashion, which everyone hates, the flip online stuff. It doesn't work. Nobody likes it. Nobody likes to read a book online with flippable pages. But this, in the very beginning, that's what he did. He worked on it for a couple of years and sold it across coast to coast. They sold this product in Canada, converting people's magazines to an online version. And then everyone realized that was stupid because people don't like to read online media that way. But it is so it made me think, does anyone even like that? Maybe I'm saying it out of turn, but I know I don't read. I hate when I go to a flyer online. I'm I want to see what's on sale in a store, and it brings me to a flippable flyer. And I'm no, I want to just you have a scalable thing available to you that I can filter them as
right.
a list or a grid or anything I want.
Don't copy don't copy the outdated format. Just give me it into the best way possible in this format.
Right.
I absolutely hate digital reading. Like for a book, for instance, I'll never read a digital book. I'll always want a physical copy. But say, like, to take it back to what we were just saying before, with the Morley's feature in the magazine, I downloaded the magazine just to look at the feature and then didn't read anything else. If I had a physical copy, I more than likely would have actually flipped through it.
For sure. Yeah. So, I mean, I'll say I've read maybe 2 digital books. I've never had a Kindle. I have nothing against Kindles, but I definitely like, and I definitely like reading physical things, and that's what I have most of my experience in. So I feel like I can't really speak fully to the experience of reading a digital like ebook or something. Like I read Dune on my phone by Frank Herbert, which is a great book. It's an incredible book. And the fact that I was reading it on my phone probably did like detract from the experience a little bit. I'm sure I would have enjoyed it more if I was reading it in a book. But the great thing about my phone was that like I could be out on a boat and just reading it easily, and I didn't have to take another thing with me that I was worried about getting wet. Which is funny because
I'm on a boat and I'm going fast and I got a nautical themed pashmina Afghan.
There you go.
Yeah,
I'm the king of the world on a boat like Leo.
Anyway, but to take it back to the story, the question you just asked, if you look at the feature, the magazine that Morley is featured in, the digital version is literally just the pages of the original, like the actual magazine. Mm-hmm. So like it's not like side by side. It's like the left side is above the right side, and it just it doesn't flow right. For catalogs, I don't know if you call them catalogs, but brochures for shopping centers, I more than happily will have like flip through one online because I don't care that much. I'm not trying to read it, and I actually have been to a couple of websites where you can click on what you want in the catalog, and it will take you to the website of that product.
So everyone listening to this, go to the McMaster Car website, and you will see someone who took a catalog. They're like ginormous, like it's a 3 phone books big catalog, and turned it into an amazing website that is filterable, that is like better than the catalog, because it's like, what kind of screw do you want? What kind of head do you want? It's like something that you wouldn't have been able to find. Like it would have taken you longer to find it in the print form. And I just go, that's what they should be doing with all the print media online.
Yeah.
And I know why they don't.
Okay, I'm going to leave a bit of a cliffhanger, and then you can reveal why they don't after I say this. It's funny when you, when there's a company with an incredible amount of money and resources, and they just have the worst public documentation or whatever. So I went on the McDonald's website today to see their online menu. I wanted to see what can you order at McDonald's? This was for work. And it was a horrible website. It was it looked like it was made in 2004 by some intern. It was so bad. And it didn't even have the full menu. And this was mcdonalds.com/menu or something. It was incredibly terrible and so surprising.
You should have gone to maccas.com.
Yeah. I'm sure it's great in Australia.
No, I agree with that, but their app is a lot better.
I bet, but if I just Google McDonald's menu, the first result is garbage.
Yeah.
Right. And this is that I absolutely hate that they keep pushing me to download more apps. I'm like, just make your browser version good. Yeah. Stop pushing me to download an app where you somehow need access to my camera. I'm like, why does McDonald's need access to my camera?
Yeah.
It's like, no, you don't. You don't need access. Thank you. And it's like, well, you can't look at our menu. I don't know. I don't know if McDonald's is that bad, but I've been on some where it's like,
I know you
need some really random access here. No, thank you. Anyways, so why do they force us to look at the magazine version? Guess.
Is it because they've the sunk cost into already making that format and they're overvaluing it?
There is that, but that was 20 years ago. That's how this business that my colleague at work, he worked at that 21 years ago. That was his. There was the sunk cost fallacy of how they'd always done it, but that's not the reason they still do it.
My guess at first would have been cost, but now I'm thinking more of like copyright because it would be harder to replicate if you were to print it off.
No, it's ads because they sell them based on placement and in the paper.
Yeah,
and so they want it on page. I want my ad to be on page 2. Well, guess what? When it's online, it's a square box to the side, right? But they bought a full page ad. So we get forced this like outdated format online because people have bought ads. And the only reason magazines exist are are because of the ads.
Yeah,
like,
that's why they were invented.
Can't exist.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they were invented. I mean, like you said, like they make all their money off of as much ad space as they can, which is why magazines are so chock full of ads, more so than like newspapers or anything else. But they were invented to sell products to suburbanites. They're basically catalogs with articles interspersed into them.
Oh, well, that kind of makes sense with their name because magasin is the French word for like a place that you go shopping.
Oui.
Mr. I don't know any other languages.
Je peux parler français, mais je ne peux pas parler Chinese.
I've never actually thought about that with the ads because, like, we have a couple of like our 2 big grocery stores here give out like a free magazine every month, and it has like recipes and all that sort of stuff in it, and they're full of ads. And I never realized that the ads is what's letting them do that.
Yeah, for sure.
It's not really, what's really letting them do that. Sorry. It's why they're doing it. It's completely different. Like there's a magazine just started up in our neighborhood, and it was like, it's supposed to be a community magazine. And I was like, great, this is awesome. And the people who actually gave me a whole bunch of tools, and on the weekend they dropped off like, I don't know, probably $300 worth of wood in my driveway. Anyways, they were featured in the magazine. They've lived here for 27 years, but they're moving out. Anyways, they were the feature. They were the front page of the magazine. I was like, great, I want to read that. It was the only article in the entire magazine. It was like, they were like 3 pages of like interspersed with ads and pictures. And it was like a 15-page magazine. I went, there's literally 1 article. I'm not joking. I just went, what is happening here?
So yes, the ads are annoying, and it's a clear economy, money grab, what have you. But I'll say that like magazines are so great, like we mentioned, just for like flipping through and getting visual stimulus. Like they're awesome for that, which is one of the reasons why I always liked reading magazines on planes, like the in-flight magazines, just looking at all the different pictures. And Adam, like you were mentioning before, we get those same magazines here. Like the liquor store puts out a seasonal magazine with like recipe ideas and stuff. And Eden and I love looking through them for cooking ideas. Like the stuff looks so good. Like I've looked through it for photography inspiration because food photography is so incredible. And yeah, like it feels, the whole like temporary nature of magazines and newspapers, it's very wasteful. Like if you're going to buy something, read it once and then throw it away. Like does the cost of the ink in the paper really justify that? Probably not. But like, as kind of, I think we're kind of getting at, like, you don't really get that same sort of inspiration and enjoyment from an online medium in the same way that you do of like flipping through a cool magazine or something like that.
I think you can get it if you do it, format it differently. So if you would think of Instructables, if they were to make a magazine, like a weekly magazine, it would be the articles that are featured in their emails. So instead of making a print magazine, they send out an email, and it's like, I think they do it a great way. It's like, hey, do you want to click on any of these things? No? Well, delete the email. Yes? Go read them. Right? Like, I think that's the way to do it. It forces different things down your throat, right? Like, I think if you want to do it online, you got to hit people with headlines. So that's why there's all clickbait, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was about to say is, like, so these magazines, my wife loves to read them. Like, she doesn't cook, but she, for some reason, loves to read them and get ideas for recipes. But if that was online, there's no way she would ever look at it. It's because she's in the shop. She's like, oh, I want to get this and have a look at it. Like it's eye catching, and like she's not searching for it; it's thrown in her face.
Okay, so the question is, why are the magazines more engaging than the digital version of them? And I think the answer is when you have a physical magazine, you can see everything at once. You can flip through it, and it's really easy to get from page to page. And there's no barrier to flipping through it. Versus when you're on a screen, barring the bad formatting, it's just like there's a lot of steps between going from thing to thing, and you can only see one thing at a time. So here's the $1 million solution, right? Holograms, where you can see every page at the same time. So it's still the digital version, but you get the physical magazine experience.
The only problem I have is one thing I hate about the online experience is the like ads that are movies, like running in the background, flashing, like buy me, buy me, buy me. And I'm like, yeah, I'm trying to read a news article, like a serious news article, and it's like flashing up on buy me stuff. It's like, oh, reading about the Indian residential school grave sites, and it's like, oh, do you need a new Dodge Caravan? It's like, no, screw off. Like, I'm reading a very serious article here. Like, but I get why they do it. Like, people are clicking on that right now. They have to make money somehow. But the problem is, like, they're not like in print. They're there, and they fade away. Right.
Once CTR makes its way to online magazines, physical magazines will probably go out the door.
What's that? Click-through rate?
Yeah. Because at the moment, a digital magazine would still be getting paid for their ads being in like the physical magazine, which would then counteract onto the digital. But once
they have both.
CTR reaches that and they have to make money by click-through, they'll get rid of the physical.
So they have both. And this is how so for a while, a lot of the magazines switched to this article base that you see like a lot of news does. Like newspapers online aren't flip-throughs. They're all article based, right? And so they've switched their models to the CTR, and magazines were doing that for a bit. You can look on like Popular or either Fine Woodworking or Popular Woodworking has gone that way. But a lot of them are switching back because they can say, we have this giant digital subscriber base. Like Make Magazine, it is very difficult to get a physical copy delivered to your door. I looked into it and I just went, like, they really push digital versions.
Yeah.
And I looked at the digital version. I don't want it. I want a physical piece of paper that I can flip through and go, huh, that's inspiring, right?
I have a quick idea because every episode Eden walks in at least once.
Yes.
Right? The first person to comment on our YouTube video at the time stamp that Eden walks through the frame the first time gets a sticker.
Ooh, I like
but
that.
You have to be subscribed.
Yeah. Well, we can't tell that.
It's funny, kind of, you couldn't see it, but
you can
in
take
that
a screenshot.
Specific scenario, I'm sitting at the desk in our living room right now, and she literally...
Don't tell them when it happens.
I'm not saying when, I'm saying what happened.
Okay.
You already established that it happened. And so she literally walked around and then behind the desk and literally reached like right behind my computer to grab a pen. So she was like right here. You just couldn't see her.
That's funny.
I have $1 million idea.
All right.
A digital magazine, a physical digital magazine. So you buy this device like a Kindle, and it's every page is an LCD screen, and then you can just update what the magazine is. So you're still flipping pages, and you have the same format, but you can change what all the pages are because it's a LED screen.
Yeah.
That's like one of those 1930s articles about like what the world will look like in 100 years.
Look like. Yeah.
I definitely think I don't know. Is print media dead?
No.
It's dying.
It's dying.
But
yes.
what I think is holding on is that they haven't actually made a good replacement for it digitally. Right? Like we were talking about, like there's nothing that makes us have the same reaction. And it's the same, like I have the same thing with newspapers. I'll read so many articles in a newspaper, physical newspaper, that I wouldn't read online. That like the headline doesn't capture me, so I move on. But I'll start reading a crappy headline on a physical newspaper to see like what are they actually talking about.
Yeah. It kind of feels like not all of it, but a lot of like digital articles and digital media is going the way of like empty calories, and they're trying to preserve the more like, oh, I actually want this for the news, the content or anything in the print media, even though like plenty of people read, serious articles and things in print media. But I'm sure if you were to make like a Venn diagram of like online readers versus like physical copy readers, like you would see a strong correlation with like the type of content they're reading. You don't see as many clickbait headlines in newspapers and magazines as you do online. Unless depends on the newspaper, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, there's some front page stuff on the Sun that I go,
yeah, that's a fair point.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I don't know, it's very hard to predict because I think like we're mentioning a lot of it is predicated on like the economics of it. So, the business model based around clicks, well, then they're going to go for more clickbait headlines and such.
And that's what they're doing. And so I don't know if you guys, like CBC obviously doesn't have a print version of its stuff, but they do have, like they share it on Facebook and they share it online, and they actually change their headlines throughout the week. The same way that we change I've noticed this on CBC because I follow this Canadian Broadcasting Corporation for anyone who isn't Canadian. And they have a news. Anyways, they'll change their headlines the same way that I'll change like a YouTube title. And they try and get the most clickbaity stuff out there. And they keep changing it until it gets the most clicks. And then a week later, it goes to a factual headline. And I think that's like disingenuous, personally. And I hate it. And that's why I don't like clickbait headlines at all. No matter what, no matter YouTube titles and thumbnails, I don't like clickbait stuff. But
right.
I feel like they are definitely a necessity, though. Like whether you like them or not, unless you have clickbait, you're not going to make it big quick. If that makes sense. Like you could still make it. Like you could still become a big YouTuber, but unless you use clickbait titles, you're not going to do it quickly. It'll take you years.
Right, but I think that's the clickbait doesn't make you good.
No, it doesn't make you good, but it gets the clicks. It gets the views. It gets the...
Yeah, I guess I hate it. It's one of those things that I just go, it's like you can grow big with clickbait stuff, but like whenever I think of like a genuine, surprising, non-clickbaity, but it looks like clickbait stuff, the guy who blew up, Stuff Made Here. Yeah. He blew up because he doesn't make clickbait stuff.
He just makes epic stuff, though.
He makes epic stuff. And when you make something... Yeah, exactly. When you make epic stuff, people click on it. And people think it's clickbait. Like, I'm sure there's half the people don't click on it because they go, I don't think he made a basketball net that you can't miss. Right? Anyways, I don't know.
It's funny because, like, that is such a clickbait title, but it's actually true.
Right. And that I appreciate so much. And I think that guy deserves every single view he gets.
Yeah. So to explore this tangent a little bit, because I've been thinking about this recently, like I think the pendulum is going to swing back a little bit from clickbait, because I think content creators have become so focused on getting someone to click that the focus has gone away from actually producing like a high quality video. Mm-hmm. And I've noticed it in some videos I've watched where I'm like, oh, the production quality of this video has gotten worse. Because they're just clearly not focusing on it as much compared to the thumbnail and the title. And I think eventually, like, people will start to unsubscribe for those reasons because they're like, yeah, like it's going to draw in new people, but you're going to lose some of the older people. And so eventually I think like with everything, it'll kind of swing back a little bit. I think we're approaching the crest.
I hope so.
Two things on that. I think that, the problem is that people are trying to get subscribers and not trying to get an audience. So they're using clickbait to get people to subscribe and watch their videos. They're not trying to get people to like their content and actually want to watch them. And you'd probably find a lot of those people watch the first video, subscribe, and think, oh, this is actually pretty good. And then they'll never watch another video from them because they realize that it was all clickbait.
Well, this is where I saw before you go on your second point, I was listening to the Proper Tools podcast, and they were talking about YouTube Shorts, and they said, they were getting huge subscriber numbers from their shorts, but
Yeah.
then they went, those people who are subscribing for shorts are not watching my longer videos.
Exactly.
And I don't want to make shorts all the time. Like, sure, I'll make a few shorts here and there, but all those people who are joining in for my shorts content aren't watching my long form content, which is where I actually make any money.
Yeah, exactly. In saying that, actually is good for my next point, is that I think that clickbait is going away a little bit I find the latest people I've subscribed to are people that I've seen like in Reels, and that's sort of pushed me to it. So one of my favorite YouTube groups at the moment is Sidemen. I don't know if I'm sure people have heard of them because they got like 20 million subscribers. But there's these reels going around on TikTok and everything of it's real life Tinder, and it's like this row of 7 guys with a girl in front of them, and they like do like really bad pickup lines. Anyway, the reel had me in hysterics, and next thing I know, I'm like binge watching their YouTube channel. Same as my recommendation a couple of weeks ago of the crime dude, Larry. I found him on a reel, and next thing I know, I'm watching his YouTube channel.
So I think you're saying the opposite of what I just said. That the short form content actually made, but I think it all depends on how you're doing your short form content.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, I think clips of funny moments of TV shows, or of say we did clips of our podcast as a short. If anyone wants that, let us know. I think that would be something like, it would be very easy to produce. You hit the high moments, boom, people see it and they go, I want to hear more, right? That makes sense. But if you do shorts as like, I'm doing, like, my biggest reel on Instagram is it was part of the Made for Makers thing, and I just turned on my saw and turned it off. So this blade spins up and it spins down. That's it. And it blew up on Instagram. And I'm still getting likes to this day on that reel. And I'm like, I don't know why. It's literally, I turn on my saw and I turn it back off. Yeah. And I'm talking, like in the comments, I talk about my grandfather. But I don't know. It's just one of those things.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is that anyone can put out like shorts and reels, but if you're trying to drive people to a bigger thing, that bigger thing needs to be of interest and be interesting as well. Like say for instance, the real life Tinder, it wasn't like I'll watch this reel and then I go watch the actual video and it was crap. The whole video was just a long version of that reel. And I mean, like these guys, like they've been working hard and they're putting out hour to hour and a half minute videos every week.
Right.
Every Sunday. And I watch the entire video every week. Like, they just make good content.
Well, if you're interested in more good content, then you should join our Patreon. You can get access to our pre-show and after show that we do every single week, except for last week because Adam's internet crapped out. So you didn't get a pre-show. You still got an after show, though. And anyone else who joins the Patreon, every single person gets a numbered keychain made by Morley Kurt. And it's a nice little leather embossed keychain. And if you're interested in that, you can go to patreon.com/clamp. We really appreciate everyone who supports us there. It's without everyone there, this podcast wouldn't exist anymore. It does cost us money every week to do this, so we really appreciate everyone. If you can't support us there, I completely understand. You can just share the show with a friend, or leave us a review. And on that note, I'm going to take us into the Clampmendations.
Clampmendations.
Well, I'm going to go first. I'm going to Clampmendate this week a weird guy. He put out this really super cool Dragon Knight chess piece, and he did a quick video showing how he built it and why he made the decisions he made. It's pretty cool. The chess piece is really cool. The video is pretty cool. Seeing like his thought process on why he decided to make different things. I really like the way that it turned out. I'm really glad I'm not producing a knight piece because I could not top that. It is awesome.
It's pretty cool. Yeah. He's been working on it for a while, and I'm so amazed at how it turned out.
Yeah. Definitely.
Well, my Clampmendation this week is a podcast called Case File. It is a guy in America. There's a full production team behind the whole podcast, but this one guy reads out a story every episode of a crime file. Most of them are murders. There's a couple about like fires and all that sort of stuff, but very interesting. A lot of them are Australian-based crimes because he lives in Australia, but he also does a lot of American stuff, like Jack the Ripper and all that sort of stuff as well, UK stuff, and yeah, very interesting. The guy's really good at telling a story.
Yeah. But he's anonymous.
He is anonymous, yes. But the crew isn't. Like, the whole production team is very open of who they are, but he is anonymous. So,
I wonder if he's not really Australian and he's just putting on an accent. Bum, bum, bum.
Maybe.
Or maybe he's Aussie man.
No, he's definitely not Aussie man. Well, I mean, if he's Aussie man is very good at playing two different characters.
That's funny. How about you, Morley?
So Eden is currently doing her bachelor's of social work, and she's in an accelerated program right now where she's basically doing a class in a week and a half. So she's basically has like stuff to do every day. It's super busy, like 10 hours of school a day, and she's like learning really interesting stuff every day. And when we talk about her day, she tells me about what she learned, and she's currently doing stuff about like human development. And she was telling me about something recently that she learned about that I thought was really interesting and useful and helpful. So I thought I would share it here. And
that sounds surprising.
Yeah. So it's by a guy named Macaulay Csikszentmihalyi, who is very well known for popularizing / naming the flow state, which some people might know I've talked about before. And he's also kind of known as the father of creativity, which is a big title, but in the fact of he's done a lot of like research on creativity and psychology. And this is just some kind of tips from him on how to cultivate curiosity and interest for a more creative life. So a few points he has is be surprised by something every day. Try to surprise at least one person a day. And then for each of those things, write down each of them every day that you surprise something when you surprise someone or you're surprised by something. And then after a few weeks, read over them to try to see any patterns and reflect on them. Follow the things that spark your interest. Wake up with a goal to look forward to. And then spend time in settings that stimulate creativity, walking, driving, swimming, and half asleep states. So one of the reasons I was kind of like thinking about this a lot is every time I journal and read back on my journal entries, I tend to spend a lot of time journaling, kind of like describing my current mental state and things I'm struggling with and thoughts I'm having, which is really helpful in working through those feelings. And I think it's one of the biggest benefits of journaling. But then when I go back and read through my past journal entries, I find that the times when I like really descriptively talk about the things that I'm doing in my day and like nice moments that I have, those are the journal entries that I love reading when it like brings back memories and it like reminds me of things. And one of the things I've been thinking about is like, okay, well, I want to do more of that, but it's also really helpful to journal in that other way to kind of like work through feelings. So I thought this was like a really good way to do that, just to every day, just quickly write down one thing that like, like kind of like took you by surprise or that you found interesting that day. So today it was, I went on a walk, and as I was arriving back at the apartment, the sun was setting behind this building across the street, and the sunset was kind of like refracting through the penthouse on top of this building. And it looked like this like glowing orange jewel, and it was like beautiful. It looked so amazing. So I just wrote that down, and after a couple of weeks, I'll read through them. And I thought it was a pretty cool exercise. So if you want to learn more about any of his work, I'll link it in the show notes because there's no way you'll be able to spell his name based on what I said.
Nope.
Yeah, check him out.
I'm surprised you were able to pronounce it.
I'll say that I listened
to the pronunciation.
I listened to the Wikipedia pronunciation like 10 times during the episode.
Oh, wow. Well, I don't forget to write down that you surprised me.
All right.
So that was try to surprise at least one person today. You surprised me by picking this. No,
All
sorry.
right,
That was my inside joke because I read the notes on what you were going to say. Anyways, that's really cool. I'm going to look into Mahali something. Something. Anyways, so normally at this time, if we have a review, Morley would read it out and try and do an accent because he's good at apparently listening to things and learning how to pronounce them. I'm not. But because we don't have that, we're going to do Adam's Australian Word of the Week.
Yeah. My word of the week this week is snag. SNAG.
So in Canada, if I hit a snag, it's like something went wrong with a project. But I'm guessing that's not what it is.
That is still technically in Australia as well, but that's not what I'm referring to.
Right. I figured as much.
So, and I'm also assuming this isn't right, but when I would use snag, I'd use it as like a synonym for grab. Like, can you snag me a beer? Can you snag me that pen?
Nope. It is a noun.
Oh, it's a noun. So then I'm going to say it is a woman that you don't want to be with.
I'm going to guess it's some type of animal.
No. It is a sausage.
What?
Yep. Interesting. That's kind of confusing because it sounds very similar to snack, which a sausage is also a snack.
Well, it depends on the size of the sausage.
You're snacking on sausages? What?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So to go on with one from a while ago, a snag sanger is a sausage sandwich.
Oh.
Yeah.
I didn't know sausage sandwiches existed, but that's cool.
Oh my gosh.
Hang on. You can't just pass past that. You don't know what you haven't had a sausage on a sandwich.
No, you get them in a bun.
Like you cook a sausage and then you cut it in half and you put it on a sandwich.
No.
Yes.
Well, you might do that. Okay. I don't.
I've had that before. It's great. One thing I want to say last is I can't believe that when we had Dean on, we didn't have him do a Creole word of the week. No, is that right? What's the is that Louisiana Creole?
I don't know. But I would probably say that why didn't we get him to do a Louisiana word of the week? Then we don't have to worry about whether or not it's Creole or not.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. Next time we have a guest on, a guest host, not just a guest, but a guest host, we're going to get them to come up with a word
of the week from their region.
From their region. Nice. I love that idea. So I want to say thank you to TF Turning for the use for the theme song. I recently, the Dean episode, I actually listened to, because generally speaking, I'm part of this conversation, so I don't listen to my own podcast. But when I wasn't part of it, I got to listen to it. And I got to hear that beautiful music. And you can hear Morley give his rendition of it in the after show. And if you want to find us all, you can find us in Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, the works, by searching for Clamp. And if you don't find us through Clamp, then Clamp, Morley, Adam, Grant. And if you still can't find us, just DM us on something. And we'll point you to where you need to go. Until next time, guys, I want to say cheers and have a great day.
Bye.
Bye. That's the outro of your videos, isn't it?
Yes.
Bow 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 bow.
Okay, hold on. Whoa. I have now listened to an episode and heard the music. It doesn't sound anything like that.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. Every time he sings it, I'm like, what are you singing? But I just let it go.
The intro music is the bum ba dum bum bum ba dum ba dum bum bum ba dum ba dum bum bum ba dum ba dum ba dum, and then it's the beer opening. But that is the outro music. But it's more like thwacky and with some drums.
Okay.
Can you sing it again? I'm gonna overlay it.
I'll do it more emphatically, but it's like.